Hello there. It is sunrise, yes. Today is Saturday and it's just gone 9 o'clock, so you are welcome. I am Alero Edu.
Well, the sun, what time is it now? Well, the sun is definitely
Up. It has risen, yes.
High now. Yeah.
It has risen.
Am I Makinde? Good morning and welcome.
Today is Armed Forces Remembrance Day.
Yeah.
Well, I can see your placard.
Oh, yeah, my signboard.
Signboard, placard, billboard.
Let's just call it the emblem that it is. Okay. It's just an emblem.
All right.
Just, keep it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it is good that there is a special day to remember our fallen heroes. But I would like to say that we don't seem to appreciate those people enough. Because it takes a certain kind of person to decide, okay, I don't mind if I lose my life. I am going to work to protect my country and my people. How come we're not all in the army? Or in the Air Force? Or in the Navy?
I remember, first of all, to lay some foundation. Armed Forces Remembrance Day was not always January 15. Hitherto, it was November, November 11 or so.
The World War.
Yeah.
The 11th day, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month.
Okay, so it was changed to January 15 to mark the end of our own civil war in Nigeria. So that needs to be put out there so people know. And I also remember that in the aftermath, one of the aftermaths of the civil war in Nigeria was that people honored the military by giving them free pass in the buses, quick access at the shops and all those things. All those happened back then. At what point did we lose those values that we gave to the military? I think we need to do some check on ourselves as a people to find out when that happened and how we lost all of that. Yeah. The military was has been in power for quite a significant number of years in our national life, and we give them all the honors then. Back then, you also corroborated this earlier when we spoke about it. I didn't see soldiers on the roads.
Good Lord. They had no business on the roads.
Even when the military was in power, we didn't see the military on the roads that much.
Well, not true, true, because that was when all this bullying and flogging of motorists started, and it was done mainly by soldiers.
Yeah, but my point is, well, maybe I was too small then.
Possibly.
Okay.
It looked at the time like, okay, the war is over now, so we can't find enough for them to do as soldiers, so we have to deploy them to go and do other things. That was the way it looked.
But the police had their jobs cut out for them back then.
Yep.
We didn't have up to 200 million Nigerians back then. So the jobs of
only about 50, 60 million. Yeah.
And the structures of Nigeria, well, it was still very firm. The local government system was very, very effective. The reason I will not forget that is, I remember the people they call Willy Willy. They came to your house to check everything, and those were the local government environmental officers. Yeah. Say they came to your house and everything to make sure that. Anyway, back to the issue. The soldiers had their prime of place. They had respect of the people back then. They were not involved in the politics of governance and all those things. But at what point?
Until they became politicians.
Until they had to get into policy making for the nation, governance and all those things, which wasn't what they were trained for. But thankfully, at least, we are where we are today, partly because of some of the things that they did back then, rightly or wrongly. So just as you said. But the important thing, and you also mentioned this earlier, why am I quoting you a lot this morning?
Go ahead.
Is that we need to give attention to the welfare of the people who have served us.
Yes.
That line in our national anthem, The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. It looks like it's in vain when we do not give credence to the things that they have done to bring us where we are.
And to corroborate that, I have been on flights in the US where to board they would invite first-class passengers, business class passengers, people with young children, and members of the armed forces. And during the flights, the crew would actually pay respect to the soldiers and or whoever the armed forces members were, and thank them for the service that they were giving to the nation. And I found that, well, you know, I felt it made me, I'm not in the armed forces, and it made me feel good that they were being appreciated. And I thought, this might actually cause them to want to do more for the people and for the nation.
Absolutely. And respect democracy, which is part of the thing that the Chief of Defense Staff said when he featured on Sunrise yesterday. Democracy has come to stay in Nigeria. So this is one opportunity we also have as Nigerians to thank members of the armed forces for all of the service that you have given to Nigeria, and to also ask that everyone everywhere, wherever you are, whatever you can do, to appreciate the efforts, the labors, the sacrifices of the people who sign on to be in the armed forces, because the moment they signed those dotted lines, they literally signed their lives away.
Death warrants. Yeah.
They literally said, look, I'm ready to die for this
country.
And I think we have heard occasionally when the president himself has said that, look, you know, so we need to appreciate them, and we need to recognize and acknowledge that they're doing a lot of work. They have done a lot. And even now, I mean, come on, check out all the things that are happening, fighting terrorism, and the worst of all these issues in Nigeria today. Are they doing everything they can? Yes. Are they doing enough? Well, you can put the questions there, but at least let us acknowledge what they have done. The Yorubas say, I don't know how to say this in English, Yini yini keni shimi. Let me try.
Okay.
In other words, if you thank someone for what the person has done, the person will do more.
That's right. Happy Armed Forces Remembrance Day. COVID vaccines. Well,
those are soldiers too, the medical professionals.
Yes, they come.
They're in the front line of the war against COVID-19.
So you go to get your vaccine, and you're told to go and register online first. And what crossed my mind was, so what is happening to the illiterates in our society when they're told to go and register online? And I recall when I took my first vaccine, the first dose in March last year, I registered online, I chose a date, an email came confirming my date and everything. But when I got to the position to go get my vaccine, I registered online. Oh, you need to go and register again. That doesn't count. That's what I was told. And now people are being told to go and register online. And while I tried to register online for someone, we filled in everything and it wouldn't allow us submit.
I think, this calls for some administration. It sounds to me like a back-end issue. Even, one experience that I had, I went there and said, go register online. I registered online. And then the next thing I said, okay, it was time to give the information. I didn't have any mail in my box. So then the lady said, go register again. Okay. So I did.
So if I can register on-site, why do I bother going online?
No,
assuming that I'm able to. What happens to my grandma in the village who doesn't know anything about online?
That's actually, a good point there. We need to even understand, people need to be helped to understand why some things are necessary. The records need to show that this is the number of vaccines that have been taken, not the number of vaccines
that they
left.
tally.
Those ones tally. That's on the one hand. On the other hand is that people get vaccine certificates. Okay, so but this grandmom who is in Yenagoa, some remote village,
In Buagwe,
is she, intending to travel anytime soon to anywhere? Is that why she also needs a vaccine certificate?
even if she's not traveling and she just needs to be vaccinated to stay safe, because obviously grandma probably has hypertension and probably have diabetes.
So I think it's an administration thing that the Primary Healthcare Development Agency needs to look at in its whole gamut.
And please come out and tell us exactly what the position is and what exactly we need to do so that we don't go running around in circles. This person for whom I tried to register yesterday has been to the vaccination place twice already without achieving anything before she loses interest. So I'm not even do again. Voila is too much. And here we are trying to encourage people to actually go out and get vaccinated.
Absolutely.
We need to encourage them and make sure that they do get vaccinated.
Okay, to encourage you to be a part of this program this morning, let's...
Oh, by the way, Twitter is back, so you can reach us. You can reach us via Twitter.
No,
so
Twitter.
You can be part of today's program.
The question
Yes.
someone is asking right now is, where did Twitter go?
Away.
Okay, so the menu this morning.
We are racing towards 2023, aren't we?
How fast are we racing?
Very fast. How many people have come out to express their interest?
How many people have come out to collect their PVCs? Don't answer that question. Well, the next topic would, of course, be the Armed Forces Remembrance Day. Today is the day. We'll be having conversations around that this morning.
Oh, dear. And it has to be today. Immediately after Twitter is back, social media and fake news.
Okay. And then the Super Eagles in AFCON 2021, that's
We
first
won
match.
our first match.
Yeah.
And I hope we win the second one. It's today, right?
Yeah, the coach has said every match is a final. So
Good.
we'll see how that's going to run.
And then we, as is usual on this program, we shall end with the Artist of the Week segment. And guess what? I don't even know whether he's a he or she's a she.
Or Ishim.
Or Ishim. But we do have an Artist of the Week.
Okay, that's good to know. So that's it. That's the lineup for this morning. We'll be right back after now to take on the first issue. It's the race. Stick with us. Well, thanks for staying with us. Race towards 2023, and it's really all about the leadership question here. During the week, APC chieftain Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Governor David Umahi, and Senator Orji Uzor Kalu, as well as Chief Dele Momodu, all declared their intentions to vie for president of the nation, vie as president for the 2023 general elections. So as the year approaches, the 2023 approaches, and intents are being revealed, we'll take a look at the capability of those who have shown intention, how fit they are for the presidential seat, and wait a minute, what are the questions really that we should be asking about leadership? Who are the people, what are the questions that people should be asking about who should be there to occupy that seat or any other seat at that? The people who want to get into this space, what's their entry-level qualification? And wait a minute.
Has capability ever mattered to Nigerians?
So that's the question we should be asking. Shouldn't it matter? Those are the questions that we're raising this morning. Professor Ademola Abbas joins us here in the studio. He's a professor of international law and global security analyst. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Also joining us is Ken Egbaz, who is CEO, True Contact, and a contender in the 2023 elections. Thanks for joining us this morning. As well as Curtis Adigba, who is a legal practitioner and political consultant. He will be joining us from the U.S. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen. Professor Abbas, let's begin with you. So the race has begun. Well, actually, there are those who say that the race began in 1919, 2019 already, because as soon as one election is over, politicians are already contending for the next one. And we had a very interesting conversation with a chieftain of the APC, Fuadoki, who says there are pretenders who become contenders, who become contestants, and then become candidates.
Huh. Wow, it's a long road, isn't it?
So first of all, concerning the whole jostling, what's your take?
Well, thank you very much once again for having me. Look, it is the right of all Nigerians to jostle, to contest any position in the land. It's a constitutional guarantee. So there's nothing really wrong in that. Wherever you are from, whoever you are, you can contest anything in the country, in as long as you have the constitutional right to do so. But the question then you raised is the question of, I heard Madam joking about whether competence ever mattered to Nigeria. Look, you throw the whole lot in the park, then you begin to take the wheel from the shaft, sieve at the end of the day. And that is where the question of competency comes in, and a host of other things. And again, I like the fact that Madam joked about the fact that, look, the contest actually started, as you said, in 2019. And that raises a very important question. How many years do our leaders actually spend in power? Is it part of the democracy to be for 4 years? Do they really spend 4 years? It's something I think we should actually address at a point in time, but don't let me get ahead. It's just the fact that Madam says something, which is very important. We can joke about it. That the moment you swear in a regime, they begin to jostle straight away for the next term. When do they actually do the job? Let's be honest. This current administration has about roughly 16 months to spend. You and I know very well that in the next 16 months, governance is gone. It's all politics. Take 16 months from 4 years, what do you have left? And when they come in, they spend about 6 months, 8 months trying to stabilize and appoint a cabinet. So take 20 months out of what do you have left?
4 years.
So that raises a question of the term limitation. I think we can address that. It's a very, very important issue that we take for granted. People confuse democracy with 2 terms in office. No, they're 2 different things. Democracy is how a government comes to power. The role people play. Those who are going to be governed, do they participate in that process?
But we agreed as a nation that democracy is going to be our employment process for governance. So shouldn't that be part of the process?
It is part of the process. I am not saying it's not part of the process. Now, democracy, I mean, as is generically defined, is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Now, the question is, that talks about how the government is put in power. What I'm raising here is that how long does the government stay in power? If a people decide to put a government in power for the next 20 years in a democratic process, that is, you vote for them, there's nothing wrong in that if that is what suits you as a people.
That's what the people want.
Yeah, let me go back to the U.S. We talk about 2 terms here in the U.S. We keep forgetting that U.S. only started constitutional 2 terms in 1951. That is, after the 22nd Amendment was adopted. When George Washington came in 1787, there was no constitutional limitation on how many terms a U.S. president could be there. In fact, in the Constitutional Conference of a few years before, chaired by Washington himself, they had proposed 1 term of 7 years for American president. It was voted out. So when George Washington came to play in 1987 as the first president of America, there was no limitation on his power. But by the time he was going to die, shortly before he died, it was 67 when he died, he was already tired. And he said, look, I don't want to go for a 12th term. Let me limit it to 2 terms. So he actually started 2 terms by convention, by practice. And every president that followed him did the same thing until 1944, Franklin Roosevelt. Then went for 3rd term and 4th term and became the first and the only president in the U.S. to go beyond 2 terms. That was when the Americans then went back to the Constitution and said, hang on, we don't want this anymore. And then in 1947, they proposed this 22nd Amendment, which then went into law in 1951. And that was when it became only 2 terms in America. Why am I saying this? We cannot trust Nigerian leaders as you could trust American leaders to say, look, I'm too tired, I don't want to go for more than 2 terms. You cannot say, constitutionally, we don't have it, but morally, let's do this. So what I'm saying is that we need to have a conversation about how long should our leaders stay in
You know,
power.
I've often wondered, you know, where is the place of morals in law? I keep asking that question. But Mr. Egbas, let's have this conversation with you as well. One of the questions that I've been asking over time, asking several people, is when will we begin to allow new blood, so to speak, into the space? Those who, well, if I am going to draw from some of the things Professor Abbas has said, who can still adopt some morality, bring in some morality into democracy, into democratic practice, into politics, and into governance. You are a private sector person, and we have had a few of you guys, you know, in governance, but it would seem like once some people come in, the next thing you know, there is some veering along the line. So getting
They are
young
duly
blood,
baptized once they get in.
getting young blood into the system is one thing. Keeping them fresh in the system, to breathe in the new air into the system. Now, that's another conversation altogether. What are your propositions?
Well, for me, I think I would first like to start from where Professor Abbas talked about how long do people really stay in power. Is a problem in the sense that if you look at other democracies around the world, when we vote people into office, they come to you first and foremost with a plan, which is contained in the manifesto with which they used to reach out to the electorate. Now, when you have this in place, the fact that at some point during your 4-year term, you're going to be engaged in perhaps a term renewal or the processes of getting a successor, I don't think it should distort the internalism of politics. In other places, for example, where they have all of this, they run with ministries, they run with organs of government. A government that has been given the power by the electorate to govern them must run on a program. When that vision is focused on the program, what you deliver will continue to be constant. It will not be affected by the fact that we're going into another season of electioneering. So I just wanted to make that point. Then the second thing, in everything, there's always a succession. If you see any leader who understands leadership, the first thing the leader does is that the very first day you start you resume your office, whether you're in the private sector or in the public sector, the idea is this, that you begin to look at, okay, one day, because this thing is termed, so as it has a beginning, it has an end. The problem we have on this side of the world is that people get into office, begin to love the local, all the things that come with office, then they don't even get to that place where they begin to think that after this, what next? So that's why you see most Nigerian politicians, we've had to recycle and recycle and recycle. And that recycling has also created a national conundrum where ideas are not coming from any other place in the society than these people. And if you understand how leadership was instituted, even from the beginning, it is generational. That means that in 20 years' time, in 50 years' time, the solution to the problems that the people of those times will be facing should be coming from that generation. So what we do wrongly that impacts negatively our ability to function effectively as a society is the fact that we do not look at the fact our leaders who are there now need to pay attention to the fact that we need to bring in new ideas. We need to bring in people who can drive innovation. We need to bring in people who can connect with the generations we are trying to deal with, for example.
But Ken,
when you have leadership
Ken, just 1 second on that issue of fresh ideas, new vision, and all those things. Interrogating that is another issue altogether. On the one hand, you know that the people, most of the people, especially in the rural areas, the people who do the actual voting, which number has been reducing, by the way, they are not really savvy about interrogating the issues. They just want to live a good life today. They're not. They communicating the idea of a futuristic Nigeria to them is utopian, because even right now,
Hard sell.
I can't see Nigeria. You know, so how do we now begin to communicate that to them? Poverty levels on the rise, unemployment, figures on the rise, and people are having problems staring them in the face on a daily basis. So any politician that comes to them is a payday. We'll come back to that one some other time. So
Exactly.
how do we begin to interrogate those issues, those ideas and ideals you're bringing on of thinking futuristically?
Yeah, I think the answer to your question is in your question already. You see, the whole thing is this. We need to begin to, there's a whole lot of voter education that needs to happen. In Cross River here, we're doing quite a lot of that. Because when people are poor, their tendency, when they cannot feed themselves, when they cannot feed their children, the tendency that they would think things through the proper prisms is nearly non-existent. We have seen in this country, Ayo, and you can bear witness to it. On the day of elections, people go and line up. Somebody brings loaves of bread and put 1,000 naira in it, and people take that and vote for such a person. And after that, they never see that person again till another cycle of 4 years. So the issue there is that we need to, that is why I'm happy you have a topic like this morning. While we are talking about leadership, leadership is one side of the problem, or one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is followership. The followers themselves have to begin to understand and interrogate themselves. What kind of future do we want? Now, there's this quote I saw not very long ago, but I can't really remember how it was written. He said, the fools are so powerful and that they continue to grow themselves. And if the people are not careful, one day they will elect one of them as a leader. Now, our people have to understand that, you cannot rise. Everybody is expecting good roads. Everybody is expecting healthcare to work. Everybody is expecting education to be perfect. Everybody is expecting the value of the naira to almost match the dollar. Or even if it doesn't match it should be at a place where it doesn't negatively impact our ability to buy or spend money. Now, all these decisions on how we live and the quality of life our children will have has to do with the decisions that we make today. So while we interrogate or while we question the quality of leadership that we have all over this country today, we must also be educating our voters, the electorate. What kind of questions should you ask when a woman or a man or any candidate or an aspirant comes before you and asks you to give him...
Thank you, Ken. Let's bring it back to the studio. Professor, my partner is talking about bringing fresh blood, bringing young blood in. But from what we know, the system already has cut them out. For instance, we hear that to get forms for presidential, you are going to pay something like 50 million to get the form, and you may not even get the nomination from your party. So where is a young person supposed to get those kinds of funds to actually be able to throw their hat into the ring?
I'm so glad for that question, because that actually strikes at the core of the whole problem we face today. I think in Nigeria we have developed this attitude of demonizing and lionizing without reflecting. People wake up and say, oh, not too young to run, oh, too old to run. And I say, look, slow down. In Nigeria, we are confusing age with senility. They're two different things. You can be an 80-year-old and more vibrant, more sensible, more rational than a 50-year-old. Everybody who governs US today, Nancy Pelosi, leader of the Congress, she's 80. Biden is 80. Trump, for all his hailed, 70-something.
Biden is not 80 yet.
Well, Biden is 80. Well, he's going to be 80 this year. That's what I mean. He's going to be 80 this year. So I'm approximating. Even all those who are contesting then, Hillary Clinton, and so many of them, they were either 70 or kissing 70 or on the first half of 70. Nobody's talking about their age. But in Nigeria, sometime by the time you are 60...
Well, Obama was 40s. Clinton was 40s.
Precisely. No, I'm starting from the fact that when we say not too young to run, the converse is not too old to run automatically. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That we should not diagnose and demonize, as an example. Look, we have brilliant young leaders in the world. Simone Chi in San Remo, who is the youngest in the world today, is 27 years old. Janet Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand.
Ardern.
She's just, you know, how many years old? Sana in
40s,
Finland,
yeah.
30-something. Even Goita here in Mali. You know, so many of them. We have so many brilliant young leaders. So, of course, there is enough. We need fresh blood. But which fresh blood? And what is the mechanism? That we cannot run away from. And that comes to the question that what is the situation currently in Nigeria is? Are we just talking the talk without walking the walk? On the one hand, you are saying you want to encourage your youth to get involved in your governance, but you are slamming 250 million naira bill to somebody who wants to pick a form of a governorship in a new electoral law. And that's what are you talking about? You know, so we cannot really, and I listen to the gentleman talking about, you know, problem of followership. Yes, the followership, there's a problem of followership, but where does it come from, for goodness sake? Nigerians have already got used to their leaders not doing anything for them. Look, we celebrate mediocrity in this country.
But is that a good thing? And how do we begin to address that one that you just said now? Nigerians have gotten used to their leaders not doing things.
But that's where I'm going to. Ayo, look at it from this angle. I'm a voter. And you know what? Those who actually vote in Nigeria, let's be honest, the majority of I can speak about Lagos State. The majority of voters in Lagos State are not the savvy, academic, intelligent youths who are going to spend time analyzing the problems of this state. No. On that day, they'll be watching Chelsea and Arsenal and whoever is playing. It is the market women in Oshodi and this and that. And they will follow their leaders, wherever their leader direct them to. They will follow them. In other words, there's a question for the youths themselves. How do we spend our time? I've talked to so many of my friends who are much younger than me that, look, I don't get it. You are happy to spend 90 days glued to your television watching BBN, Big Brother Nigeria, and I have no problem with that. You mobilize all your friends to go and vote, but you can't spend 2 hours to stand on a queue to vote, to put in somebody who's going to affect your life, your parents' life, your everybody's life for the next 4 years.
And your
But
future.
Prof, is it not looking like that is going to change now with all that is going on social media with NSAS and all that? Are they not showing more interest in what happens in governance in Nigeria?
I think NSAS was a pivotal moment for the youth awakening in this country. And I love that, if not for anything, at least they showed during NSAS, the youth showed that they were not lazy. Maybe they've been misapplying their energy and their priority. They showed that they could actually take control of this country. And they need to, but they need to ramp up. But for them to ramp up, we have to make it also easy for them, accessible to them. Youth cannot ramp up when you are slamming 250 million, 500 million bill on forms. Again, another question is, what roles do we play to change things in Nigeria? You know, I was in the government before, you know, when you leave government, people call you, I'm not going to run again. I said, look, that is a mistake we make in Nigeria. Not everybody will become a governor. Not everybody will become a president. Your role might be at your local level to mobilize towards a good leadership. And that is very, very important. So youth have a role to play in Nigeria. There's no question about it. And that is where the role of these representatives and the senators actually come to play. You need to fix many of these things by law. You cannot be sitting down saying, oh, youth must take control. Your youth must have access. And then you pass bills in your chambers that immediately outlaw youth from that same. It does not make any sense at all.
Well, it will not be in their interest. So, are you surprised that they're not eager to do things like that? Now, Ken, what are your thoughts about the youth actually coming into the fray?
I think it's important to bring the youth into the fray. I like the way Professor Abbas puts it. I think these are really topical issues, and hopefully, maybe in the next National Assembly, these are the kind of things that need to come to the fore, because you cannot say that you want fresh blood, you want new ideas, then you say they should pay that amount of money for forms. The idea is this: what that begins to do to people is that when they get to office, they are first trying to recoup, and they don't have answers to any answers to the people who put them in power. But having said that, I think that if we begin to interrogate this a bit further, we're looking at what should qualify whether a young person or an older person, because I like the way Professor Abbas puts it, that you can have an older person who is more vibrant than a young person. But when we're talking about fresh blood, it actually doesn't limit. It's not limited to age. It's not limited to gender. It's limited to ability to have access to come in. everybody should be able to come in. We should first create that. Then, having said that, I think the other thing is that our youth are largely misinformed and greatly influenced by cultures, external cultures that do not add value to their everyday life. I've also been moving around and having conversations with young people. The first thing that you notice is that when it comes to taking very critical decisions, they're always missing from the room. Now, exclusion can be systemic or it can be voluntary. Now, in this case, even though there are systemic issues that are keeping young people out of the room, they themselves are not showing the level of interest, passion, and commitment, and saying that we want to be part of this conversation.
But that
will
may
shape
be, Ken, just 1 second, that may be as a result of what Professor Abbas said earlier, that look, already you show us that we are not important. We employ you to do jobs for us, you don't do the job, so we are getting used already to people not doing anything. So why get interested in something that we know is not going to benefit the larger majority?
Ayo, you were in this country 2 years ago when the End SARS movement brought the entire nation into a standstill. That is the power of resolve. Even if there are issues that are keeping our young people from being able to actively participate, they have the right to put their numbers together and ask to be heard. Today, if all the young people in this country come out in their millions and say to us that, and say to the government that we want to participate in this politics of 2023, but these things you have put are like roadblocks. In fact, they're not roadblocks, they are sealed doors that we cannot pass through. And we would like this to change. I can bet you that the conversation will begin all the way to every strata of leadership in this country, and they will be heard. All over the world, freedom is never really given. It has to be taken. And the young people have to understand that they have the powers to do this. And it starts by getting involved, getting a permanent voter's card, telling yourself that these things involve my children, my children's children. So I'm not going to sit down and leave it to people who have no idea what they're doing. They also have to be, young people also have to be involved in that conversation around who are the kind of people that we vote into the office or offices. What have they done in their lifetime? What can they show that they have done? Whether you're in private sector or public sector, you must be able to show proof or evidence that I have this capacity, I have these certain competencies, I have used them to the benefit of humanity or my community to this extent. Young people should be driving this. Because if you see the history where we are in Nigeria today, effectively, Ayo, and you can check this out, we have almost 4 generations of, if not 5, that have been suppressed. Now, this is what is leading to the extent of the degree or high degree of criminal activities happening all over the country, because we have people who have gone to school, even with a master's degree, cannot find a place where they are taken into the system and can make themselves viable or strong contributors to the economic growth of their community, the society, and the country at large. Those are some of the issues as well. Okay. So for me, I believe that some of the things we need to look at as we go forward.
Okay. And now, Professor, you said something earlier about us, the electorate, not actually expecting anything from our leaders. This democratic, should I call it an experiment or whatever, we've been at it now for 22 years?
Roughly 22, 23 years.
Yeah, going on 23. Is it not time that we were becoming a bit more mature in this exercise? Don't you think we should have got to a point now where we, as those who elected those leaders, should actually be able to interrogate what they're doing for us, as opposed to what they said they were going to do when they were campaigning?
Thank you so much for that question. It goes straight in 2 directions. The first one is when I was talking earlier on about, whether we should interrogate certain aspects of our democracy. The second one is also from what the gentleman just said, which also we talk about, is the proof of who comes to office. How do you hold them to what they want to see? Now, let's face it. I can come out and say I want to be president of Nigeria. You have not heard from me for 4 years. You don't know who I am. And I don't want to mention name. There's a particular candidate in Lagos State that comes out every 4 years. Once they are defeated, they don't say anything for 4 years. Now, the problem with that is that people come forward only to contest. They have money, they have everything. Now, but we cannot test their mental strength. We can't test their psychological balancing. We can't test anything. We don't even know whether they have, we can't decipher their stance on public issues. Issues that they are going to be dealing with should they be elected into office. I mean, we have people who are coming out now to be president, to be anything in the country, who, when pivotal movement happened in this country, massive killings were going on. They chose not to say anything because they didn't want those comments to probably prejudice their position when they come out. Now, they don't say anything, so you don't really know what stand they take on very vital public issues. Now, when that kind of person that comes out saying, I want to be governor, I want to be president, they've got money, and nobody's interrogating, hang on, I don't know your stance on abortion.
Where have you
been? I don't tell you about in the last 4 years. Oh, I saw you 4 years ago when you came out. After you lost, what happened? Because something tells me, Ayo, madam, if you genuinely want to serve your people and you lose an election in year 0 or year 1, or you are booted out of office in year 1, it doesn't shut you up. You keep on speaking up for those people. You identify, you talk about those issues. But if you are booted out of office or you lost an election, then you went into your cocoon for 4 years, you didn't say anything. The next time I see you is when you want to contest 4 years after. I'll be asking, in whose interest? For me, that is the first credential. So it doesn't matter whether you are young or old. And let me even flip the coin. There's one Nigerian I like what he does with that. I'm not saying you'll be the best candidate or anything. I don't even give a damn about that. It's Mr. Atiku. Whether you like it or not, I've been watching Mr. Atiku in this country, former Vice President Alhaji Atiku. He speaks his mind on issues, good or bad, whether you agree with him or not. He doesn't lose an election and goes back into his cocoon. He talks about almost everything. I only mention him because I pay close attention to people.
Example.
That's an example.
Well, you know, one other thing that on that, my apologies for butting in, Prof. One other thing that a number of people have also identified concerning such a thing is what happened when the current, ruling party was in the opposition. Very vocal, very active, and all of that. And people are wondering, why is the main opposition party today not doing the same thing? But let me ask you this question about entry level. And Ken also may want to speak to that later. I remember quite a number of times the vice president has said over and over again, young people getting at whatever level. Even if you're getting as an SA, special advisor, special assistant, or even just the ordinary assistant to any politician, get in, learn the ropes, learn how the game is played, learn how the system works, and use it to raise your own stakes and all of that. But I don't know, first of all, what you do, that's what you think. What do you think about that? And that's not just talking about at the federal level or the state level. Many people are not even thinking about the local government level.
Ayo, thank you so much for that. I've appeared on your program so many times, and I like to use personal examples because they resonate with me. Because I've experienced these things before. When we were coming in 2015, that's government of Mr. Akumiambode, I was appointed as special advisor. Of course, in Lagos, special advisors and commissioners, you are at a core level, at par. You all report to the... But the concern of some of my friends and some of people was that, oh, why didn't he make you a commissioner? You are so close to him, you should be a commissioner. And I said, hang on. I don't care about whether you are a PA or you are S or anything. I care about what precisely you want to do in that office. And I'll throw this again to you. Just shortly before we were constituted as a cabinet in Lagos State, the governor called me that I wanted to be a commissioner in this particular, in a different ministry than it was already penned me down for. And I said to him, no. He said, why? I said, because I don't know jack about that ministry. It is the first time I'll be talking about this publicly. He said, I said, no, I don't. I cannot do something I'm not prepared for. And that was it. And I'm so happy that the person who actually occupied that ministry turned out to be one of the finest gentlemen, colleagues I had in that cabinet. And I'll tell you straight away, fantastic in terms of ideas and everything. And one day I was riding in the governor's car with him, and something that gentleman actually had to deal with. It was electricity in Lagos State, and I'm talking about Wale Oluwo. And the governor said, oh, there was no light in the area. I said, call your friend. I called Wale Oluwo. Said, oh, we didn't have light in this area. So he dealt with it. And I turned to the governor and said, I'm happy that I did not take this position that day when you offered me? He said, well, I said, because I would never have been able to match what Wale did in Lagos State. That is it. You must be able to reflect on yourself, look at your competence, what you can do. That is what we are not good at doing in Nigeria. Because we've seen politics as, well, a president once said it's a do or die affair. So what do you expect? So people want to go there, and I keep telling people, if you really want to serve a people, and they say, thank you, don't serve me. Look, service is a burden, make no mistake. You should say thank you very much and go quietly. And then do whatever you can do to still keep on supporting them. But whenever you want to serve only yourself, and they say don't serve me, you tell them you are joking. No, sir, I must serve you, whether you like it or not. So that is the problem.
That's not service.
Precisely. And that is the bulk work of politicking in Nigeria, pure and simple.
Okay.
Ken.
I want to ask Ken that same question about entry level. My apologies, Alero. So Ken, getting in for the young people, level of involvement. Many people are interested in getting in at the most relevant, most prominent level they can. I saw a post, you may have seen it as well, and maybe Professor Abbas and Alera have seen it, of a councillor in a local government, I think I don't know where it's in Gombe State. Councillor had about 15 assistants. So talking about entry level, what should young people that we're talking about be looking at? You've talked about them getting their PVCs to vote, but is that all there is to it?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to get involved. And I like the way I share Professor Abbas' viewpoint when he talks about capacity and people owning up to what they can and they cannot do. It's very, 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 very important because people have to be able to take up responsibilities that they're prepared for. And in terms of the responsibilities that you're prepared for, we all have to be in that mindset where we are ready to start from wherever it needs to start from. Now, so you can balance that. There are some people who have, for me, I don't even believe, by the way, there's anything called career politician. Politics for me is about service. So if you come into politics, the first thing in your mind your mentality should be that I'm coming in to serve because I have XYZ capacity in ABC. When that is there, then next thing you ask, because you see, when you go to all the bars, all the restaurants, you see all the armchair critics all over this country. They know the best thing to do about the economy. They know the best thing to do about sport. They know the best thing to do about environment. But all that conversation ends where they sit. Sometimes they even resort to fisticuffs to settle argument. It shouldn't just end there. People should begin to ask themselves, if I really feel this passionate about the solutions I think that I have, where should I enter through? I mean, I'll give you an example. I have been in the private sector most of my life, creating value, driving social enterprise, driving sustainability. My footprints are everywhere. When I came out, I took part in the electoral process in 2015. When I didn't get that, I was given an appointment as a special advisor to the governor of Cross River State, Governor Leah Limoke at the time. And they gave me the office of strategic planning. And I remember everybody was laughing at me and said, that place where they carry you go so, now paper, no money, no day there. And I laughed because the first thing that brought me there wasn't about money. Even though I was a special advisor for a short time before we handed over to this present government, I was able to put that office into a position that my successor would have now understood. Even the government will understand that. That was actually the most important office in the entire ministries that we had at the time. Because when that ministry functions, the finance, every other ministry works. Because you are the one sitting with the governor to draw up the development plan for the state. Now, that gave me a new vista. I even learned new things that I didn't know at the time. So when it comes to entry level, people have to be able to say to themselves, I am willing to start from somewhere. Then there's this thing about everybody wants the plum of the cake. But if there's a way you can also go into serving leaders, people who are leaders right now. so that you learn the ropes under them, you work with them, you understand. The thing about politics is it's actually a game, whether we accept it or not. So you have to learn the dictates, the tricks, and all of that. And by the time you add that to the capacity or competencies that you already have, you understand the intrigue that go into it, and be able to show who you are and what you're able to do, and also be able to show that to the people, your electorate, or people who you expect to support you. Okay. I think that it puts you in a... So okay. I wanted to make this example. I was speaking to a young person yesterday, and he said this to me. I said, he was complaining about this particular leader. This leader is a bad leader. This leader is this. I said, but you voted for him. And he said, yes, we voted now. We did not have any choice. Then I asked him this question, and this is how Nigerians need to see our leadership issues right now. If I gave you a brand new Mercedes-Benz, and you were traveling from here to Uyo or to Lagos, and they brought in a driver, and you heard that that driver had never driven a car before in his life, and that person was to drive you to your destination, will you enter the vehicle? He said, God forbid. I said, fine. So why don't we apply this also in the place of leadership?
Ken, what would you say to those who have said quite often as well that politics is the shortcut to being rich in Nigeria?
Yeah, you see, that is actually the base of the problem we have in our society today. Like Professor Bass was saying, everybody wants to, I will stab you by force. You see, it's also part of that interrogation we need to begin to look at people. What to do. I don't see why somebody who cannot show you a business that he has run, anything that he has ever been in charge that has worked in his life, will come to you and tell you that I can do this. You should begin to put a question mark there. Because actually, the problem we have in our society, in our politics in general, is that people see getting to office as a way to get rich. It would be nice if we got to a stage in this country where we have, like in some other clients, where you see people who take a sabbatical off their businesses or some things that they are already doing and say because there's a vacuum, there's this gap. I can go and fill this gap. And when I finish, I limit my term. I'm going to do this for 4 years or do it for 8 years, and I come back to my business. The reason why you see most of our politicians who become career politicians is because they have no fallback position. Even despite their access to money and huge amount of funds, look at them 3, 4, 5 years after they come out of office. First and foremost, they build gargantuan houses they cannot maintain.
That's it.
And of course, when power goes, who hangs around you also go. You see most of them resorting to selling off these properties after all of it. So when we say politics is a way to get out of poverty, yes, that is a problem. That is why we need to begin to get government, we need to get leadership to also create other, make things work in terms of creating jobs for these people, creating opportunities outside of politics. The number of people who come out to run for office most times is really scary. Now, the scariest part of it is that most of these people have no business even running for office in the first place.
Okay. Professor, I saw a post about 2 days ago, ostensibly by Governor El-Rufai of Kaduna State, telling us what happened to those who steal. I mean, politicians who steal, in China, in Japan, in other climes. And he said he wanted the death sentence to be the punishment for corrupt leaders in Nigeria. And that made me think about the issue of the servant leader. What are your thoughts, for instance, about the death penalty for corrupt leaders, and then the issue of the servant leader? And talking about the servant leader reminds me of the interview that we conducted many years ago with Professor Soludo, the first time he came out to be governor of Anambra State, where he told us that we would never catch him driving in a convoy and more or less pushing people into the gutter because he wanted to pass, because he intended to be a servant leader. Well, he's got his chance now. He's been voted in as the governor, so we are all watching.
Well, thank you very much. Well, let me address the piece you mentioned about death penalty for politicians who steal. I will extend that to people who are corrupt in general. Look, corruption is the worst thing that can happen to a people, to a country. Everybody pays at the end of the day for it. But is death penalty the solution? I don't think so. Let's use other crimes where we have death penalty to interrogate whether if we then extend it to that, it will reduce.
It will work.
It will work. Mm-hmm. Look at armed robbery. You know, evidence, research has shown over and over that killing thieves, publicly executing them or whatever, doesn't really, in other words, actually, on the other hand, it makes them more brutal psychologically because they know once they are gotten, there's no reprieve, they'll be executed. So their margin of appreciation of human life falls even lower when they do that. I'll use another example. I lived in Europe for a few years, and I remember that in Germany, they have what they call Autobahn. On a particular highway, there is no speed limit. You can drive yourself literally to death if you like. Now, in the UK, it's 70 miles per hour. You know, at a point in time, research showed that there are more accidents in the UK with 70 miles per hour than in Germany, where it is. Because the truth is...
But Prof, also remember to add that not everybody can drive on the Autobahn.
That is true. I agree with that.
Not everybody is allowed.
It's allowed to drive, yes.
Yes.
You know, which means there's a system that sort of, you know. But what I'm trying to drive at is the fact that if I'm going to drive an Autobahn, I know that, you know, there's a level of trust imposed on me to self-regulate myself when I'm going to do that.
That's right.
You know, and that is what everybody is going to do. So when you extend such things to death penalty, somebody has stolen, you want to execute them, okay. You don't teach somebody a lesson by killing them. What lesson are you teaching them? You take them, and that is why sometimes jail can be it can be a big deterrent, so that you can see the consequence. If you put there for life, as an example, yeah, we're going to be paying for it, we're taxpayers, but at least we serve as a deterrent. Somebody will look at you and say, look, if you go that way, you know, for instance, look at the Ethiopian example. I used to work for the African Union, and I remember one of the things, I think was Menawi did when he became prime minister. There was a lot of stealing in government. You didn't kill them. Okay, all the money you stole, he identified them, invest them in Ethiopia, and then they did a deal. You go to jail for 5 years. So Ethiopia has some of the highest number of hotels that you can never get per capita anywhere, this and that. What I'm saying is that, look, stealing from government, corruption is a very endemic problem in Nigeria. We must tackle it.
Africa. In
Africa as a whole. But we must tackle it. It is all over the world. I mean, I remember I used to give a lot of talk in those days in my previous life in Europe. And I sat down what you call GCSP, Geneva Center for Security Policy, where I was training mid-rank diplomats and this and that. And one European woman stood up and said, oh, you know, we don't like doing business with Africa because Africa is corrupt, unlike Europe. And I said, really, which Europe are you talking about? I said, because I just flew in from UK, and my Prime Minister, Tony Blair, did a deal with Saudi Arabia, went to sell these jet fighters, and he was accused of paying £1 billion to the Saudi prince to facilitate the sale. When they asked him a couple of days before I flew to Geneva, when they asked Tony Blair that, look, why did you pay that money? His answer was, well, because of sensitivity, national security, I cannot go into details. I said, you see, if in Europe it's there, in UK it's there, you will never open the British tabloid and find the word corruption. They call it sleaze. They call it cash for question, cash for honor. Cash for, so
it's more beautiful.
Yeah, you euphemize everything. So don't let's kid ourselves. Corruption is everywhere. But the question is, how do we tackle it in Nigeria?
Okay, now in that space, and I'm going to use, both of you will respond to this as well. So let me begin with Ken. In that space, we know corruption is endemic, and a good number of people have been accused, especially the politically exposed, have been accused of being at the forefront of it. Is it one of the questions we should be asking people who are vying for office? There are those who think that if we don't ask those questions, there is no other question to ask. I'm asking that to ask this one, and this is the question that I would like you to answer. And if it's one of the one of the questions, you may list it. What questions should the electorate be asking the people that are vying to take the job of governing their lives? Are we asking the right question? Have you been asking the right questions of the people whom we have put in the office to change the game? What questions should we be asking to get a different result?
Thank you very much. There's this book I read not long ago. It says, I think the title of the book is Start With Why. Okay, I can't remember the author now. It starts with why. Nigerians need to ask the right questions. When they ask the right questions, they will take the right decisions as followers. When they take those right decisions as followers, they will be in a better place to choose the kind of leaders they want to do the job of developing their communities, their societies, their states, and their country. Now, it is very important, very, very important. If my father left me a bank, right, and that I'm the fifth generation, and generations before me had managed that bank as chairman, and I was the position of the managing director suddenly became vacant, and I was going to fill it to make sure that I can hand over that same bank to my children, and they can do likewise to that, since it's a family business. I will not hire a farmer. I will not be looking for a farmer. I will not be looking for anybody else. I'll be looking for someone who has made money, managed money, and multiplied money. So this brings you to this place where we look at capacity. Now, capacity, competence. You must be able to show me, Io, right, what you have done in the past before this time. You must be able to show me what you have been able to do. And from that point, I'll be able to look at what you can do. Now, connected to this, if all of a sudden you see somebody, you see, the thing about politics and politicians is that they come from communities, they come from families. All of a sudden, you see a man who barely could feed his family 2 years ago, suddenly he's a billionaire. People should ask questions. Because what we are also having is that into politics, we are having a lot of slush funds coming from other aspects, from criminal enterprises, just because they see politics as a way of putting themselves above the law. So these questions have to be asked by the electorate. And it is when we begin to ask those questions to the level of competencies that we will improve, not just in ourselves as followers, but also the kind of people we allow in positions or in public offices.
Prof. Well, let me start by saying I agree entirely with what Ken said. I think that he's put it very well. But there are certain things also. Remember earlier on I did mention the fact that let's stop taking people who we don't know before they are foisted on us. Whether you are in public sector or private sector, there should have been some roles you play, even by just taking public stances on public issues of corruption, issues of this, of that. With that, the public will be able to judge. There will be a barometer with which to measure you on so many, because you are coming to administer.
But answer this question, Prof. The people will not be able to interrogate these individuals until they become candidates. Is it not too late in the day? Which is why many people are saying, okay, maybe everyone should get into the space so that we select the right persons at the party primary level. So, speak to that.
Look, Ayo, I think the challenge we have here is that it's like we are putting the cart before the horse, which is what you've just alluded to. Because at the end of the day, yes, it's a fact. By the time you are going to begin to exercise that kind of interrogation, it's already fait accompli. You've put that particular candidate forward. But what I'm saying is that it doesn't matter, even if you've got you've got the ticket of your party at the primary level, you're still going to face another candidate. But there is a total absence of interrogation, is what I'm driving at here. So what you get will be I'm so sorry that I have to refer to this example. In recent times, Nigerians have been comparing, you see, those of you who pushed Jonathan out, you can see now what Buhari has done. You you can't start suddenly deodorizing something that is not. I'm not referring to. I'm just as an example.
Okay.
You can't start deodorizing something that wasn't good just because what you have now is not any better. So we need to interrogate. But let me say this: there are some questions we should not be asking. And I've been seeing a lot of.
Let's do that in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of media outlets doing that. Like some question like, where do you get your money from? Oh, do you have a what is called bullion van to carry? Those are irrelevant questions. As a Nigerian, I can use what we call a bulletproof car if I want to protect myself from attacks. So these are inane questions. Ask somebody, what is your competence? What would you do for Nigerians if you get to this particular? And what can you? If you are a governor of a state before, I could look into your record and say, when you were a governor, you did ABC. How am I sure you won't repeat this thing? Well, simple as ABC.
Well, those questions are, I think we need what's it called now? A book to write out all those questions so that when the time comes, as the days unfold, as the contenders, or rather pretenders, contenders, candidates, and whatever else that will come up, we'll be able to know them. But we need to.
I've got a quick tweet here from Ayobami Alo. It says there is now speed limit on the Autobahn in Germany. In fact, the speed limit is 130. I live in Germany.
Oh, interesting. Thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
At least
correction.
now we know.
Yeah.
Professor Ademola Abbas, Professor of International Law and Global Security Analyst, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
This morning. Ken Egba, CEO, True Contact. I don't even know whether to call you a new entrant or a repeat entrant. Thank you so much for your time.
Or a contender.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Ken. Well, so sunrise continues right after. By the way, we told you earlier, it's Armed Forces Remembrance Day. We understand that the president is already at the Eagle Square. When we have the image, we'll let you know. Already?
That are on parade this morning. There are 4 colors on parade. The national color, the regimental colors of the Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Navy, and the Nigerian Air Force, respectively.
Well, we are right now, of course, we can see that the president is
President
already there.
Commander-in-Chief
We have those images
commences inspection
now,
from number 1 guard.
We're going to stay with this for a little while.
Number 1 guard is commanded by Captain A.H. Ngolde. Captain A.H. Ngolde is the commander of number 1 guard on parade. The sub-guard commanders are Lieutenant C. Dioha, the right sub-guard commander, Lieutenant M.T. Thinkan, the left sub-guard commander. Number 2 guard is commanded by Captain Y.A. Rabiu. The sub-guard commanders are Lieutenant A. Samuel and Lieutenant N.P. Sitmang. The unsigned to the colors, the national color, is Captain M.I. Dangana. The unsigned to the regimental color of the Nigerian Army is Captain I.S. Juero. The unsigned to the naval color is Navy Lieutenant J.B. O'Reilly. The unsigned to the Air Force color is Flight Lieutenant Oshumbade. There are regimental sergeant majors backing these colors. We have, of course, the regimental sergeant major backing the national and the regimental color is Master Warrant Officer Unisa Ibitoye. He doubles as the RSM of 7 Guards Battalion. We also have RSM naval color, Master Warrant Officer Fongos Zedekia Danfulani. The RSM of the Air Force color is Warrant Officer Husseini Yao. Because the overall RSM Master Warrant Officer Sanusi Mohammed, that's the Brigade RSF. The scintillating and very, very clean turnout as a result of instructions and handling by our various RSFs. Number 3 guard is commanded by Navy Lieutenant S.K. Mohammed. The sub-guard commanders are Lieutenant E.I. Opala and Sub-Lieutenant M.B. Oyeleye. Number 4 guard is commanded by Flight Lieutenant U.U. Akugbe. The sub-guard commanders are Flying Officer U.A. Nkanga and Flying Officer E.O. Obu. Bringing up the rear is number 5 guard, Lieutenant Colonel Y.M. Wakili. The sub-guard commanders are Lieutenant Colonel John Ako and Captain Zebion Langa. the parade inspection over. The parade commander has just sought to get the presidential permission of His Excellency, Mr. President, the Grand Patron of the Nigerian Legion, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. We are now moving to the next major segment, that is moving towards the National Arcade for the wreath-laying ceremony. We also want to recognize the band officers, Major M.A. Toriola, Squadron Leader A.A. Ololude, and Lieutenant Commander Francis Carlo of the Navy. At this juncture, the microphone swings over to Captain Anebi Abakwa for the continuation of the commentary. Captain Abakwa, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Major Paul Abara, retired. Your Excellency, the special guest of honor and the reviewing officer for this very historic occasion, His Excellency, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Muhammadu Buhari. It has been events unfolding here at the National Arcade venue for the year 2022 Armed Forces Remembrance Day celebration parade. Earlier, we witnessed the arrival of the reviewing officer and the special guest of honor for today's event, after which we had the inspection of the various guards by the reviewing officer. The next event we'll be witnessing any moment from now will be the last post. The last post is a bugle call used in military funerals and ceremonies to commemorate those killed in war. The custom dates back to the 17th century. Therefore, the last post that will be sounded is in honor of our fallen heroes who paid the supreme price for our dear country, Nigeria. Your Excellencies, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, at the moment, the firing party commander, Sergeant Atsue Simbe, is marching the firing party to the cenotaph, accompanied by the dignitaries that will lay with this very historic morning. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, happy viewing. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, senior officers, ladies and gentlemen, when the last post is sounded, serving officers and warrant officers in uniform are to salute. Please, shall we all rise for the last post in honor of the fallen heroes? Thank you. Dignitaries, you may please take your seats. Thank you. The next event is special prayers for the living and fallen heroes who fought gallantly for the global peace and national integration. At this juncture, may I respectfully invite the Director, Chaplain Services, Roman Catholic, Colonel Anthony Francis Mayemagini, to kickstart the prayers. The Director, sir.
In the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, amen. Almighty and ever-living God, we profoundly thank you for the great favor of giving us the wonderful gift of this geolocation, Nigeria. Thank you for the blessings of bestowing our land with unimaginable gift of both human and natural resources. We profoundly thank you for the gift of the diversity of professions that have produced the men and women of the Nigerian Armed Forces. We acknowledge with gratitude, O Lord, your immeasurable kindness to us as a people, and especially to the Nigerian Armed Forces with all the structures that support it. All-powerful and merciful Father, you are the God of justice, love, and peace. You rule over all the nations of the earth. Power and might are in your hands, and no one can withstand you. We present our country, Nigeria, before you. We praise and thank you, for you are the source of all we have and are. Spare this nation, Nigeria, from chaos, anarchy, and doom. Listen graciously to the cries of your people who confidently turn to you. O God of infinite goodness, be our strength in adversity, our comfort in sorrow, our health in weakness. We implore you to grant peace to our nation. We thank you, O Lord, for the cream of officers of the Nigerian Armed Forces and the entire men and women of the Nigerian Armed Forces, and all that we have been doing to uphold the territorial integrity of this nation and the peace support operations outside the shores of this nation. Bless us and bless all who support us in many other ways. Bless, strengthen, and support us in this current war against terrorism and other vices. Grant this through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, God forever and ever.
Amen. Thank you very much. The next to offer prayers for the living and the fallen heroes is the Director of Islamic Affairs, Group Captain Taufik Gidado Mikdad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. O Allah, you are the all-powerful, and you can never become powerless. O Allah, you are the protector of all creation, and you need no protection from anyone. O Allah, you are the supreme, whose supremacy is not challengeable. You are the Almighty, whose decision is not reversible. You are the eternal Lord of all ages, who will never die and is not replaceable. O Allah, exalted be your mighty name. As we are here gathered today, in commemoration of the sacrifices made by our fallen heroes, O Allah, we pray, forgive them, bless them, support their widows, stand by their orphans, replace their sorrows with joy, replace their pains with gains, and fill their vacuums with peace and happiness, and wipe their silent cries at this moment of mourning. Our nation, Nigeria, make us stronger, boost our economy, and grant us peace and security. Our President Muhammad Buhari, be for him and be not against him. Support him and do not support against him. and grant them success at the end of all endeavors. Our leaders at all levels, O Allah, guide them in the best interest of this nation. On our own, we cannot do anything. By ourselves, we cannot achieve anything. The armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, O Allah, grant us victory unto victory over the enemies of our nation. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala al-mursaleen. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ameen.
Amen. The next to offer the prayer is the Director Chaplain Services Protestant, Air Commodore Dogobari.
Almighty and everlasting Father, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the all-knowing and all-doing God, the one and only true God who sees and knows and understands all things. Before you we've come as a nation in solemn remembrance of our great men and women who paid the supreme price for the unity, oneness, progress of this nation. Lord, we come before you with our hearts heavy and pain for the sacrifice your children have paid, asking you, Lord, that the sacrifices of your children shall not be in vain. Lord, we pray for the leadership of this nation under the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Muhammadu Buhari, and his Executive Council, the legislators, and the judiciary, and the armed forces of this country. We ask, Lord, for your wisdom. We ask, Lord, for your courage. We ask, Lord, for tenacity even in their leadership. Father, we ask of you that even as we remember the fallen heroes, cause us to arise to the call of this nation, that which your children have laid for the sake of unity and progress of this nation shall not be in vain. Lord, we prayed for strength and unity, for guidance and direction. Lord, we prayed especially for the current challenges that your nation is bedeviled inside. We ask of you, Lord, you are the man of war, that all enemies of this nation arise, O Lord, and fight the battle of this nation, that the glory of this nation shall be restored even in a great way. We thank you for the widows and orphans of the fallen heroes. We are lifting them before you this morning, asking you, Lord, that even as you've taken their loved ones, strengthen them, encourage them, comfort them, guide and direct them, and provide even unto their needs. That none of these ones, Lord, will ever regret the sacrifice of their breadwinners. Father, keep them safe and secured. We are so grateful, Lord, committing the armed forces of this nation that are fighting day and night to ensure peace and unity of this nation, within this country and outside the shore of this nation. Lord, grant our soldiers, officers and men, victory over every form of operations, be it on the air, sea, or land. Grant your children victory. Keep them safe and secure. And every platform, Lord, being used, Father, grant that it shall succeed. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for being the guide of this nation. And we trust you, Lord, that beyond our imagination, the nation Nigeria shall rise beyond human expectations. Thank you because you are faithful. Blessed be your holy name, Lord, even as we've prayed and asked all this through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Please, shall we all rise to observe a minute silence in honor of the fallen heroes? Thank you. May the souls of the departed rest in perfect peace. Amen. Dignitaries, you may please take your seat. Thank you. The next event will be the commencement of the wreath laying ceremony. And the first to lay the wreath this historic morning is His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. At this juncture, may I most respectfully and dutifully request the Commander Guards Brigade, Brigadier General Mohammed Takuti Usman, to please invite the special guest of honor to lead dignitaries for the wreath laying ceremony. The Commander, sir. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the first known wreath-laying ceremony to honor unknown soldiers dates back to the Peloponnesian Wars in ancient Greece, where an empty stretcher was carried in tribute to the dead. The wreath-laying ceremony involves the placing of flowers at a memorial site. In the military, this is done at the tomb of the unknown soldier. This solemn ritual has continued to be observed globally till date. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, happy viewing. And the next to lay the wreath is the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo.
Next to lay the wreath are the President of the Senate, Senator Hamad Ibrahim Lawan, and the Speaker House of Representatives, Right Honorable Femi Bajabiamila. Next to lay the wreath is the Chief Justice of Nigeria, His Lordship Justice Ibrahim Tanko, CFR.
Next to lay their wreaths are the Honorable Minister of Defense, Major General Bashir Salihi Magashi retired, and the Honorable Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Malam Muhammad Musa Bello, represented at this solemn occasion by the Honorable Minister of State, Federal Capital Territory. Stepping out to lay the street is the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Rabo. Stepping out to lay their wreaths are the service chiefs and the Inspector General of Police, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahya, the Chief of the Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Awal Zubero Lembo, the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Isiaka Oladayo Amao, and the Inspector General of Police, IGP Usman Al-Khali Baba. Stepping out next to lay his wreath is the representative of the Doyen of the Diplomatic Corps, His Excellency Ambassador Salahuddin Abbas Ibrahima, the Cameroonian ambassador to Nigeria.
The next to lay the wreath is the Chairman, Nigerian Legion, Major General A.M. Jibril, retired, and the representative of the widows, Dr. Mrs. Lemu, wife of late Major General S.M. Lemu. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it may interest you to know that Dr. Mrs. Aisha Salihu Lemu is the wife of late Major General S.M. Lemu, who died on the 17th of September 2006, plane crash in Benue on their way to Obodo on official assignment. Late Major General S.M. Lemu was former Provost Marshal Army and died as the Chief of Administration Army. He was an officer and a gentleman. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the wreath-laying ceremony on this historic celebration of the Armed Forces Remembrance Day celebration parade here at the National Arcade. The next event we'll be witnessing in a very short while is the firing of the 3 volleys. The firing of the 3 volleys is a ceremonial act performed at military funerals. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all are to rise. Officers and warrant officers in uniform are to please salute. Thank you. Dignitaries, you may please take your seats. Thank you. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, what we just witnessed was the firing of the 3 volleys. The next event is the reveille. The reveille signifies the last respect in honor of the fallen heroes.
Please, cameramen, it is exclusive to the FRC and NTA, the State House correspondents, and the Guards Brigade reporters. Please, cameramen, all of us are pleased to give way for the signing ceremony when it commences.
Please, shall we all rise for the reveille? Thank you.
Security details, please ensure the place is not clustered by a battery of cameramen, please.
Dignitaries, you may please take your seat. Thank you. The next event is the signing of the Armed Forces Remembrance Day Anniversary Register. At this juncture, may I humbly request the Commander Guards Brigade to invite Mr. President to sign the Armed Forces Remembrance Day Anniversary Register and thereafter release the pigeons.
And His Excellency, we are accompanied on this signing of the register by His Excellency, the Vice President, the Distinguished Senate President, the Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, the Honorable Minister of Defense, Honorable Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, the Chief of Defense Staff, Service Chiefs, the Chief of Army Staff, the Chief of the Naval Staff, the Chief of Air Staff, the Inspector General of Police, please, every other dignitary, please, create some space there. Security men, please, take control, please. We don't need any cluster. One and all, please. Signing of the anniversary register, indicating his impression of today's occasion, and of course, his felicitation to the dignitaries, the armed forces personnel that saw action in the different operations. By the special guest of honor, the Grand Patron of the Nigerian Legion, President Commander-in-Chief, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Can we put our hands together as he proceeds to release the birds of pigeon, birds of peace? They fly high to indicate the harmony and the very, very conducive atmosphere at this arena, and by extension, the entire nation, Nigeria. Birds of pigeon are birds of peace, sparkling, immaculate, white. They fly high. The birds who fly. Your hands together, please, for the special guest of honor, please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next will be the national salute, bringing us to the end of this very sober, very solemn occasion of the year 2022 Armed Forces Remembrance Day Presidential Parade Lane Ceremony at the National Arcade, Abuja. Please, once again, when the national anthem is rendered by the band on parade, we are all please expected to rise. Officers, warrant officers in uniform should please salute. Thank you very much. Can we please rise wherever we are seated, please? Thank you. Officers, warrant officers in uniform to please salute. Thank you. Dignitaries, may please take your seats. Thank you. The National Salute Over, the parade commander, Major Damilola Aye Bogun, steps forward to seek the presidential permission of Mr. President to march up the colors and the rest of the parade. That's bringing us to the end of this ceremony. Presidential permission graciously granted there by the special guest of honor, the Grand Patron of the Nigerian Legion, President Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. And all too soon, we have come to the end of this very sober, unique occasion of the remembrance of our fallen heroes, known and unknown, and our living heroes, the 2022 Armed Forces Remembrance Day Parade, the National Arcade, Abuja. On behalf of the National Planning Committee.
And that is the Armed Forces Remembrance Day ceremony in Abuja. Right? And that,
Yes, we are about to talk about the Armed Forces Remembrance Day in the studio today.
Well, I'm just, one cheering thing, the birds flew.
Yes, if you recall that last year they refused to fly. Maybe they hadn't been fed.
Or maybe they were, or if they weren't fed, they wouldn't, because they'll be too tired, right? But if you also overfeed,
poor birds,
it'll be a problem. All right, we're going to take a short break now. And then when we return, we'll discuss this with our guests. We'll discuss the Armed Forces Remembrance Day 2022 with our guests. Please stay with us.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Just before that break, we watched the Armed Forces Remembrance Day celebration, should I say, which took place in Abuja. But here in the studio now, we're actually going to discuss the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, and we're being joined virtually by two guests. It's my pleasure to welcome retired Major General Pat Akem Wenger, who is the Chief Executive Officer, Blue Point Leadership Consultants. Good morning. Major General Professor.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
We also have with us the CEO of Lani Group, Mr. Ani Basi Ayo. Good to see you again, Ani.
Good morning. How are you?
Morning. How are you?
Nice to meet you once more. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy Armed Forces Remembrance Day. And
Same.
Happy Armed Forces Remembrance Day.
Same to you. Well, let me start with the retired Major General, who also happens to be, who has a PhD in law, by the way. Major General, Armed Forces Remembrance Day. You used to be in the Army. What does it mean to you?
Okay, it means a lot. Let me start by thanking you for bringing me on to discuss this very solemn day and solemn occasion. You will recall that the Armed Forces of Nigeria are populated generally by very youthful, young Nigerians who are brave enough to volunteer to serve and prepare to lay down their lives for the nation. So the history of the Remembrance Day, like you discussed earlier, was tied to the Commonwealth generally. But at the end of the Civil War, Nigeria decided to set up this day, and we've been celebrating it to honor not only those who served in the First World War, Second World War, but also those who participated in the Civil War and perhaps laid down their lives. And generally the officers and men that have served continually in various operations around the world and within the nation. So it's a very solemn day, very important day, a day that we remember the sacrifices that have been made. And I will perhaps say the nation should also be very grateful to this crop of men and women who have, some of whom have paid a very supreme price. So generally, it's a very solemn day, it's a notable day, a day to just remember the sacrifices that have been made.
Thank you, General. Annie, you are a civilian. What does Armed Forces Remembrance Day mean to you? And do you think that what do they call us now, bloody civilians? Do you think that the bloody civilians actually appreciate the importance of this day?
Thank you very much. I think what's very important is understanding the values of Nigeria and where we are today. I remember when I was a young child, there was a lot of noise and celebration around Armed Forces Day. But it is watered down over the years, that even when I watched that very solemn ceremony a few minutes ago, it just made me wonder how far we had gone down in remembering the soldiers. And in a different life, I lived in the United Kingdom for quite many years. I studied there. What we call the Poppy Day, 11/11, is well celebrated, and it's really recognized, and you understand and see the values of veterans. So to answer your question, as a civilian, I know it because I have seen it happen in other jurisdictions. I've seen it growing up. But I would say that a large percentage of our population is not aware of this day and what it actually means. It's not in our school curriculum. Nigeria is largely a country where 65% of the population are under 30. So these are people who have not really witnessed real wars other than what we have now with the insurgencies. And even with that, it's not linked to honoring of veterans. So I think a lot more needs to be done. And if anything, we have this beautiful day to unify all Nigerians and to create a rallying point where we could begin to be reflective, to look inward, and sort of redefine our peace, our solidarity, and our makeup. I think this is what we could use this day. It shouldn't be left to the government. It shouldn't be left to the military. It should be a public-private partnership to make it a day that is in the hearts of all Nigerians, a day that we remember those who constantly have fought for us.
Annie, thanks for refreshing my memory. It was called Poppy Day indeed, and when we were growing up, Poppy Day was a very important day, and we actually went out and marched wearing our poppies. But how many people wear poppies anymore? Do people even know what poppies are?
Dogs. The way it sounds to many people. But General, you've been in the military. You rose to be Chief Logistics Officer in the Army before you left. And, one of the things that makes this day significant is remembering the unknown soldier and catering for the welfare of veterans, those who are late, the affairs of those who are late, their dependents, their spouses, their families, and all of those things. How well would you say, aping from what Mr. Basieyo said earlier, how well would you say people appreciate the sacrifices of men of the Nigerian Armed Forces over the years until now?
Okay, thank you so much. Let me start by first addressing that expression, that phrase, that thing that where my sister referred to, said the military call civilians bloody civilians. Actually, we have moved very far away from that. You have a crop of military men now that are very educated, enlightened, and they are very much aware of the fact that they volunteer to serve, and that it is the taxpayers' money that buys the uniforms they wear, the weapons they carry, so they respect civilians. I think the challenge is that we have become very ubiquitous. We are everywhere in Nigeria. So that mysticism that used to be associated with the military is lost. It will take deliberate efforts to bring it back again, because if you keep seeing soldiers, they become the familiarity. Now they say familiarity breeds contempt. Nigerians must begin to appreciate and understand that when they lie down in bed to sleep, there are soldiers in the northeast who are in the open to the vagaries of the terrain and the weather conditions. And in the northeast, when it is cold, it is cold. When it is hot, it is hot. And yet they stay in trenches. We must understand that soldiers are checkpoints and that they are doing this all for Nigeria. And I was flying from Atlanta to Missouri, and on the flight there were service personnel in US. There were service personnel on board, and the pilot came on air and announced that they had servicemen on board, and everybody clapped. I was in business class, and all of a sudden, one gentleman in business class moved to the back and came back with a sergeant to take his place. Wow. Such is the acceptance and the respect and the honor they accord the armed forces. And that can be replicated here. We only need to think that our businesses will not run well if the armed forces are not there. I will not be able to sleep peacefully if the armed forces are not doing the kind of jobs they are doing. Nigeria may even be invaded by a foreign power if the armed forces are not up to the task. So basically, we need to go back to appreciating the sacrifices that the soldiers and the officers have been making and have made over the years. Perhaps it may take some kind of socialization. And I'm not talking about turning the nation into a socialist country. I'm talking about deliberate socialization that makes a nation begin to love, citizens begin to love their institutions, because the armed forces is a very major component of element of national power. And every nation should be proud of its armed forces. So maybe some deliberate socialization may take place to make us understand that this is our armed forces, peopled by Nigerians, our brothers, our sisters, our sons, our daughters. If we do that deliberately, then maybe that may come back. Are the armed forces, the veterans, are they catered for enough? Are they treated well enough? Well, with respect to payment of pensions and gratuities and all that, the present administration has been trying. At least those of us who are retired will get an alert every month. Can something more be done? Yes, very much so. I mean, for instance, the disbarment allowance that has been paid, it was discriminated and segregated in such a way that some of us did not get it. It shouldn't be so. We're all served. We're all open to the same challenges and dangers that every other person was open to. So we should be paid to what? Basically, the government has tried. But it will take a lot of Nigerians also operating at various levels to actually appreciate the armed forces. NGOs, private organizations can contribute to make these soldiers know that their services are recognized and that the sacrifices they are making are recognized.
Well, we'll come to that part of the appreciation, but in terms of structure, you served in the military until about, say, 5 years ago. So in terms of the structures to ensure the welfare of the officers and men in the military, especially the ones that you say are in the trenches, we know they are there right now. To be honest, it breaks my heart every time I have to drive in the night to see. Let's just stick with the ones we can see all around, especially in Lagos. Policemen on the streets, on duty. That breaks my heart enough, that their wives, their children are at home, and when they go out, there is no assurance whether or not anyone is going to come home. It is heartbreaking enough, and it is very trepidating enough on its own. So, but in terms of structures to take care of the welfare of the people in the trenches who are doing the boots on the ground men who are doing the hard work, the heavy lifting of ensuring the sovereignty and the unity of Nigeria is as we want it to be. What, in your own opinion, would you say are the structures? How strong are those structures that ensure their welfare, especially those ones that are still in service?
Well, you are generally talking about the welfare and the supply of logistics and the things that are needed to conduct the operations they are involved in. The services are trying within the ambit of the provisions that have been made by governments. Maintaining an armed force of the scale that we have, even though we are not as many in the Nigerian army as I would have expected, we should be running an army that is close to 500,000, given the terrain we are covering and the multiple operations we are involved in. But even then, at the level we are now, the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the Air Force, the logistics you need to maintain troops at the scale we are in multiple operations, very high. So you will need to devote serious resources to it. So will I say that the resources and the welfare optimal, up to the levels required? No. But are we trying within the resources available? Yes. Because I served and I was in charge of troops, I commanded troops, and I saw what we were able to do with the resources we had. Can we do more? Yes, definitely. You need more of logistics, you need more men to be able so that troops who are engaged in the Northeast, for instance, engaged with Boko Haram and the other elements, for instance, can serve for a period and then withdraw back, rest and train and then prepare. But when you are operating with an army that is just maybe around 180,000, maybe 200,000, and you are committed at the levels you are committed, you will overstretch soldiers, and then you start discovering that their welfare is being impacted negatively. So welfare is not just throwing logistics at people; it's making sure that the administration, they are able to do rest and recreation. They are able to, if they are sick, they are able to get the required medical treatment, whether within the country or outside the country. The armed forces are trying, but again, the government could do more.
Okay. Well, when you talk about getting more soldiers, there are those who would argue that how about the deployment of technology? We'll come to that. That's an operational question.
Yeah. I was even going to address that.
Okay. All right.
I was going to address that.
Okay.
You see, most developed armed forces are scaling down men because of technologies, emergent technologies. You can say that, but it's not too applicable to Nigeria for now. We can actually scale up and then scale down when the need arises. For now, we are unable to deploy the technologies that other nations are deploying for various reasons, and I wouldn't want to even do too much on that. So, given the kind of operations you are involved in law enforcement operations. We shouldn't be the fault of the military. We shouldn't be getting involved in that, but we are, because the other services, the other forces that should have been doing that are not very effective in Nigeria. So you have an army, for instance, that is fighting in the Northeast, fighting in the Northwest, doing operations to protect our oil assets, and then doing law enforcement operations in almost every state of the Federation. Now, there is a limit to which you can deploy technologies to do this. You need feet on the ground, you need boots on the ground to be able to effectively perform these roles. Perhaps one can say that you can train the Civil Defense Corps to a certain level where they can actually handle this. You can train the police to a certain level where they can handle. But until we do that, you will keep on having boots on the ground in these operations that I'm talking about. So you need men. For a nation whose land space is about 920-something thousand square meters, where you have a Sambisa forest that is larger than Lagos by 18 times, where you have some spaces that do not have, that are to some extent ungoverned, you will need a higher number of forces than we have.
Okay.
And
well, my
if you want to
apologies.
Replace that, you will need to build more barracks. You need to create more.
Well, General, you're definitely talking about all the things, a number of issues a number of these issues the CDS raised when we had a conversation with him yesterday. But let me take this to Mr. Basieyo. Now, for you, you heard the General talk about the need for the private sector to have some inputs in all of this welfare, especially of the fallen heroes, remembrance, and all of those things. How, in your opinion, do you think the private sector can come in? You're a private sector practitioner.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that's the way to go. We're in the era of the Sustainable Development Goals, and there are 17 goals, and one of those goals is fostering partnerships. That's more private public sector engagement with a more defined role for the third sector being NGOs, etc. So I just want to take our minds back to health and education. A couple of years back, a decade or two ago, when we moved from military to democracy, we knew that assets were totally dilapidated and depreciated. We had no assets in health and education. And we've seen progressively, I mean, we're not yet there, that we've had corporate organizations start to play more defined roles in those sectors. And there's been the Health Alliance. In education, we've seen lots of NGOs, lots of corporate come out to sponsor different investments. We call this investment corporate social investment or corporate social responsibility. It's happening. It's really happening in the sector. In fact, my foray into understanding the Armed Forces Remembrance has come through our education entity, Axiom Learning Solutions, where we work with Charles Bebe. Charles Bebe was a Major General who passed on many years ago. But his family, in his legacy, created a foundation. And one of the fundamental things they do is to honor the families of the fallen heroes on the Remembrance Day, such as this. So scholarships are awarded, and this year and for the years, we're looking into things like starting counseling services. So that's one example where we can get private sector involved. I was very, very impressed and enthused when I heard Oscar, Mr. Yema of Air Peace, announced priority boarding for veterans and soldiers in the last 1 week. And this is sort of thing where we're talking about appreciation. So the first thing we need to do really is to understand that the military cannot do it by themselves, neither can the civilians do it. So we need to work together. And working together, we must have a strategy, a point where, this is what the private sector can do. We can create a fund, we can fund scholarships. A lot of the problems, we're talking here about fallen heroes. We're not talking about the families. I see some of these families where they have to move out of the barracks within 6 months of their breadwinner passing on. I see families where they can't access education, they can't access healthcare. They're basically thrown into the trenches. So much as we're talking about the fallen heroes themselves, let's also understand that a lot of them are breadwinners and their families. We need to create appropriate mechanisms for them. It's not just about the pension, it's about creating sustainable social fabric that will cushion those families in the event of the loss of the breadwinner. And yes, we can have the private sector involved. We can create a fund, a multilateral fund that allows beneficiaries to get vouchers to schools, to get discounts maybe for their books, to get access into public health institutions to access medical care, and even to for transport, maybe things on airlines, etc., and that sort of thing. They can have that. They can even have priority access in some places.
Sorry to cut you short, Annie. Sorry, I'm really sorry to cut you short, but we've run completely out of time. But I would like to say that the Vice President's message at the church service to commemorate Armed Forces Remembrance Day. In that speech, he also spoke about the commitment of this government to the welfare of those that the fallen heroes have left behind. I wonder if that's any encouragement for you. Thank you very much, Annie Bassi Ayo, CEO, Lani Group, as well as retired General Pat Akem Vinger, former Provost Marshal of the Army and former Chief of Logistics, now CEO of Blue Point Leadership Consultants. Thank you very much, both our guests who joined us virtually. Thank you. Sunrise will return in just a moment with another interesting conversation, this time surrounding social media and fake news.
Twitter is back. Well, Twitter didn't even go anywhere in the first place.
To start with, for you guys who are computer savvy, I understand that you all were on something called VPN.
I don't know what they do. How could they do that?
How could they do that?
Well, maybe our guests will be able to speak with that and several other things. Because every day we read a whole bunch of things on social media which may or may not be true. So over the years, social media has continued to serve as that platform, that has aided the spread of misinformation as well as good information in many cases. So let's take a deep dive at the social media and fake news, especially in the light of this return to the micro blogging site Twitter. Jide Benson joins us this morning. He's a public affairs analyst. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Okay. I'm gonna put
Why are you so amused?
It's good to be here. I like your studio. I haven't been here in a very long time.
Okay, thank you.
And Twitter is back anyway. It's a good reason to be happy.
Yes, Twitter is back.
Yeah.
Is it that significant?
It is actually.
She accused you people of using something.
Because you were never off Twitter all that time.
She's old
were
school,
you?
actually. Yeah. It's the same way her own parents would have. It's the same kind of thing her parents would have said to her in the days of, Untitled telephone. Because her parents didn't have access to telephone. And so when her generation had access to telephone, their parents couldn't relate. And then when you find children these days that are 2 years old and 3 years old and are struggling with their parents for their mobile phones, they can't imagine that 22 years ago, there was nothing called mobile phones in Nigeria. So she's old school, actually.
Meanwhile,
yes, she's very analog.
Meanwhile, the grandmother of the future is going to be
very digital.
Pointy.
Yeah. If not even VR using.
Well, that's another one.
What is VR using?
Virtual reality.
See why I say she's old school?
No, I am self-acclaimed old school, self-acclaimed analog.
At least you own up.
Yes, even though I try.
Try.
I can use Twitter.
It's not that you try. You'll be a relic of the lost age if you're not using anything with the screen these days.
I'm taking exception right now. You're speaking to my
That's what we do on Twitter.
What's the meaning of that?
That's what we do on social media.
It's
a leveler.
That is why they say that you people need, what's that word now? Regulation.
And deliverance. Plus deliverance.
Okay.
So speak to it. Now, one of the counsel that I think it was the president of ATCON that was giving counsel that now that the micro-blogging site is back, people should use it more responsibly.
Yeah.
First of all, how does that strike you? Is there any education around that you think is needed?
Well, it's not so much about education. I think it's more about personal responsibility.
Okay.
And it's a call that a lot more people should make. And it's good that it's coming from somebody like him, even though a lot of people cannot relate. So maybe we should talk about what we refer to as social media. And let's focus on the prefix, social media. As I said before, jokingly, it's a leveler. So you can talk to your father's age mates, or your grandfather's age mates the way you like. But then, as with all things, there's a need for moderation. And I think that's where the issue of personal responsibility comes into play. Everybody seems to have thrown caution to the wind. I mean, let's not go as far as the micro-blogging side. On WhatsApp, which is almost at the tip of everybody's fingers.
Where you know everybody.
Where you know, at least you know almost everybody that you're on a WhatsApp group with. You see people forwarding messages. And then you ask, does this person have something called discretion or the spirit of discernment, if I could be a bit religious.
No, stay with discretion. The spirit of discernment is a very...
And sometimes you see some of those messages, please share widely. So you're asking me to extend the frontiers of your stupidity. That's what it means. And then at the bottom of some of them, you see forward as received or copied. We're all supposed to be gatekeepers. That's why it is your phone. I mean, you bought it with your money, assuming. You buy data with your money, assuming. So when a message comes into your phone, you have a duty to sieve what has come in before it goes out. I mean, if it's for public interest, yes. If it's for public safety, yes. But don't be somebody that fans the embers of disunity.
Yeah, but Jide, I'm sure there are some ways and means whereby some of the information that you receive can be checked.
Yeah.
There must be a few ways that can be done.
I mean, when I get some of those messages, oftentimes there's Google on my phone. And then if I check the top-rated media platforms and they haven't featured it, I wait a while. And then at times I get personal with people who forward those kind of messages. And, I mean, let's use our parents, for example. On the average, when my mother is tired and doesn't have maybe data, she would forward about 20 messages every day to all her children.
20?
When she's
busy?
She's retired, so all she does is reading messages. It's not a prayer point. It will be a motivational story. But they keep forwarding and keep forwarding. Or they'll say, oh, don't speak this number, 080, blah, blah, blah. 17 people picked it and I've died. I'm like, how in the world do these people come up with these things? Did you read this message? So again, it goes back to the issue of self-censoring.
But where do we begin that conversation? I asked that advisedly, Mr. Benson. Now, here is my challenge. And you talked about us all taking responsibility, and I think we should really give a little more attention to it. And here is why. It's a political year. And a lot of news is going to be going out.
Indeed.
A lot of false news.
A lot of them
Yes.
may not be true.
Yeah.
Targeted at one person or the other for one purpose or another.
Yeah.
Sifting that
Yeah.
for the electorate
Yeah.
is going to be a big issue.
Okay.
So what would be your counsel? Because don't forget, you said we should give attention to the prefix with the social. Let's give attention to the suffix as well, which is the media.
Yeah.
So it is media, whether it is social or terrestrial or conventional, it is media. And any information, your first natural inkling would be to believe it before you begin to say, wait a minute, could this be true? So you have the information first. So how do we manage? You've talked about taking responsibility for what we share. How do we manage? What would be your counsel to most people who have very, very itchy ears and itchy fingers?
Okay. So that is a burden of responsibility that politicians and the political class should shoulder. They have a duty as they go to seek for the support and votes of the electorate to also educate them. Because you cannot divorce propaganda from politics, not just here, everywhere. I mean, historically, propaganda has been a part of politics. So some of what we refer to
propaganda could be fake news.
Yes, some of what we refer to as fake news in political sphere is propaganda, because what you would attempt to do is to demonize your opponent, just so that you can cut the support and votes of the people. So let the politicians or the political class carry the responsibility as they are producing posters. Let them also be producing campaigns, educate people about platforms that they are using. Because, I mean, think about it. We're talking about Twitter today. In 2015 and in 2019, Twitter was one of the platforms that helped almost everybody that got into government. I mean, I checked the president's Twitter page yesterday. He has 4 million followers. In 2014, I don't think he had that much. So if he has grown from whatever number it was before he became president to 4 million, that means on an average, he's been president for 7 years. So at least he's gotten maybe about 500,000 followers every year.
Okay.
So
that's a huge number.
Yes, politicians should carry that responsibility, at least at such a time as this. Because since there's now a political coloration to social media.
So where then is on whose shoulder then? You've talked about responsibility. There is a place for politicians, a role for politicians to play. But then there is a role for the people. Generally, we all know this. I don't even know whether it's an elephant in the room or an elephant in the open.
Okay.
Trust between government and the people is greatly depleted. So any information that demonizes the government, as far as many people are concerned, the natural inkling would be,
it's true.
You understand? So where do we begin?
Begin from self. And then, okay, again, talking about social media. For instance, let's talk about LinkedIn. I think it's high time that anybody that has a LinkedIn page and maybe is a WhatsApp administrator should add that to their LinkedIn profile. There's a palpable feeling of irresponsibility on WhatsApp groups.
True.
So anybody who is a WhatsApp administrator deserves a leadership certificate.
Really?
No, and I'll give you examples. You're on a professional WhatsApp groups. So say journalists or accountants or lawyers or public relations practitioners or civil engineers, and it is supposed to be for issues about your profession. And then all of a sudden somebody posts Channels Television is 25 years today. Click on this link. They're giving out 250,000 to the first 10 people.
Oh dear.
And you and I are engineers. We're registered engineers, or we're lawyers called to the bar. And we went to the same school. We went to law school. You read this thing and you thought that it made sense for you to forward it
to engineers.
Or click on it.
And you did. You wanted to win 200. So
for doing nothing.
Let's make it granular. It's the person first. Now, and that's why I make the point. It is worse when you think that those of you on that group are kindred spirits or like minds. So if you begin to ask yourself, did this guy and I actually go to the same school? Or are we actually members of the same profession? And the way people forward videos and forward pictures, and some of those things that you see there, videos, things that you saw 7 or 10 years ago. Yes, it's fine that maybe that person is seeing it for the first time, but at least respect the other people who you're with on that group. And again, many of us just click that I agree on any of those platforms. We never read those terms and conditions.
True.
If we ever take time to read some of those things, you will find out that some of those platforms have actually put clauses of caution on them. And that's why they're able to take down some people's messages.
Mr. Benson.
They're reporting.
You have 30 groups.
Yeah.
So you expect somebody to read 200 messages on the average on every group. Of course, they'll just select all and click mark as read. We all know
That's not what
happens.
I'm saying. I'm talking about when you're signing up to a social media page.
Oh, okay.
You're getting on Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat or what have you. There's a point where you have to click I agree to the terms and conditions for your account to go live.
Yes.
I doubt if globally you have up to 20% of people who read those terms and conditions because they're very tiny.
Before clicking, I agree.
Yes. So to some extent, we can exonerate these platforms. And that's why when Alero tweets something and I report it to Ayo can take down Alero's post or tweet. And then it could get suspended.
So what do you think about government actually thinking of ways to regulate these sites?
I would go back to the intention. He talked about trust.
Well, government is to prevent the spread of fake news.
Yeah, I mean, there will be other avenues. Government is one of the first promoters of fake news. When somebody is running for office and tells you that I will build this road and I'll construct this number of schools, and then gets into office and 6 years after still giving excuses, that in itself was fake news, and is using states media to churn out achievements. Take this bottle for instance. Yes, take this bottle for instance. Take a picture from the top and from the left side and from the right side, and they're showing it as 3 different projects or 4 different projects. That's fake news. So social media is a leveler. Nobody has a monopoly of access to. Nobody has a monopoly of capacity to spread fake news. That's it.
But you have also talked about the risk of it.
Yes.
Perhaps there is a need to expatiate on what those risks are, both from the side of government and from the side of the people.
Yeah.
How serious, how damning are those risks?
Now, there are a lot. We've seen instances where a news item continues to go viral and people have taken action based on it. I was driving on Lagos-Ibadan Express Road and I saw people carrying guns and they are this tribe and all that. And 5 minutes later, somebody is passing on that same road. And you do not see a semblance that anything of the sort happened. I mean, you see normal activities. 5 minutes right after when somebody has said, they've just killed 73 people, and maybe you pull over to buy something and you ask people in the community and they tell you, we've been here since morning. It's been peaceful all day. Back to going forward, it's the individual responsibility. Government has to increase its capacity to earn the people's trust. And rather than wanting to wield the big stick, government should find ways of continuous enlightenment. And once upon a time, we had a functioning National Orientation Agency. And I think that by now, National Orientation Agency should have a campaign geared towards responsible use of social media.
That's a very good one. But then one other issue, just this one last one in about 30 seconds or so. Fact-checking. Fact checkers around the globe have accused video and social media platforms of laxity. Checking facts before sharing them can be an arduous task. Can you recommend any easy way to check before you share?
I don't think it's arduous. I think it's more about wanting to be the first to break. I mean, almost every day you see breaking.
Yes.
Alero is wearing a shoe.
Doesn't she normally wear shoes?
She usually used to wear slippers all the time.
So look at it this way. I mean, for people who have phones that when the messages drop, you see it at the top of your phone. So when you see breaking, there's some anxiety to
curiosity.
Curiosity to click. What's this breaking? And then you open the it didn't even break. talk less of it getting to breaking points. So I don't think it's more about fact-checking. I think it's about the race to want to say, oh, and for those who have become, citizen journalists and whatever, maybe they want to put it as part of their CV, oh, I was the one that broke this news at so day and at so time.
Well, Jide Benson, public affairs analyst, thank you so much for your perspectives this morning on social media and fake news.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Twitter is back.
Sunrise is back after this break. Please stay with us. It's like the matter of Nigeria concerning the Super Eagles is in the hands of God.
Is it?
You
Do not say it's in the hands of God, please. We have won one match already. We're playing our second. You are saying it as if we're not likely to win. Sorry, guys. We just had to. We had to clear that one. You know, the African Cup of Nations is finally here, and this man is now saying things about leaving things in the hand of God. Well, God plays his role, and the players on the field are going to have to play their role as well to win.
When everything goes well, we give it to God. When everything doesn't go the way we want it to go, we give it to God. You're protesting.
I am protesting.
Okay. I don't know if the guests will join you in the protest.
I mean, the people also have to play their own part by playing good football so that they can win, which is the will of God, I might add. Yes, we're talking the African Cup of Nations now, and it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Babafemi Raji, who is Super Eagles Media Officer. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Ma. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Hope you didn't hear all that about leaving things in the hand of God.
We all need God.
Yeah?
You see?
Yes. I mean, it's in the hand of God, but what about the players? Don't they have to, they just cross their legs and they will score goals?
No. The God factor is after we worked, and we have worked real hard.
Thank you.
We keep working hard.
Thank you.
You're talking to him, not to me.
Well, I'm looking at you because you were the one saying all those things. Yes. Babafemi, now tell us, what is the state of mind of us? Well, I'm going to say us because the whole of Nigeria is over in Cameroon right now in anticipation of tonight's match.
Yeah, really, we're positive. We're very optimistic. We're mentally strong ahead of this game. And we're not overconfident, but we are very, very confident because we prepared real hard. We worked real hard for this particular tournament, and we're taking it one step at a time, one game after the other. And the immediate task right now is to beat Sudan today from 5 p.m. kickoff. We'll be getting set for our teamwork. If you need to feel the ambience, right, the energy in the camp, it's an energy that just connotes positivity. Everyone wants to play. Our attention is focused on this, and the coaches have worked real hard to prepare the boys technically, tactically. The psychologist has worked on the entire team as well to get them ready mentally for this game, because it all starts from the heart. And the boys have this large heart that wants to get them to win this tournament. We know we have 7 matches, 1 gone already. We ticked that box already.
6 to go.
The second.
Wow.
The second is today. And we want to keep one at a time till we play the 7th game, which will be the final on the 6th of February.
Yes, tell us, please. That match played on Tuesday. I'm sure that we were all very apprehensive because we were playing Egypt, and we hadn't beaten Egypt in like forever. So what kind of spirit was in the team after that win?
Awesome. That was a perfect start we wanted. We wanted to start well, because starting well further boosts the confidence level of the players. Why we came in very confident, but we needed something extra. And that extra was a wonderful performance against Egypt. Aside the win, the pattern of play also determined the level of confidence. We were able to contain play, neutralize potential dangers. The players indeed adhered to instructions from the coaching crew. It was a wonderful gameplay. Overall, a beautiful gameplay. And we're happy Nigerians are happy. And we want the happiness to continue. today after 90 minutes. So generally, the confidence, that win further boosted the confidence of the entire squad and further made us believe in ourselves once again that we are here to win it.
What would be the motivation that you would say have been prepared for the men on the field, the entire crew? I ask that because, you know, a good number of people are usually like, well, the confidence level is very high. Hopes are extremely high. I have to confess, Mr. Raji, I am one of those people that is always afraid to watch a live match involving a team I love.
Me
so as
too.
much as I love the Super Eagles, I am always afraid of losing a match because I'm the one that is losing. So the confidence level is high and everything, but one thing that we know can help to buoy that confidence would be the kind of preparation, especially the back-end preparation, the support preparation given to the men. So what, in your opinion, would you say is the level of that support, the welfare, all the enablements they need to get their job done?
Yeah, we receive massive support. If I start listing now, I'm sure you wonder. Support from first the direct parents of the team. I'm talking about Nigeria Football Federation under the leadership of Mr. Amaju Melvin Pinnick. The team has received a wonderful support. Remember, we camped in Abuja. Abuja shares same climatic conditions as Garua. So we camped in Abuja, prepared well for this in terms of welfare, taking care of assurances, and then promises being kept, and then the sports ministry. And of course, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari. Remember, we had a delegation, presidential delegation, visit us here in Garua just before that, our first game against Egypt. And we had the sports minister here, we had the deputy speaker of the house, we had the top government officials here, and they also watched that first game. And aside that, we also had some of our sponsors, that of $20,000 per goal and everything. So there's been financial motivation aside the personal motivation, because we are all self-motivated first, which is very key. And then we've had motivation from various quarters. It's been very immense. It's been massive. And trust me, this is really driving the team, not just the players, the backroom staff, the technical staff. It's really awesome. And if you get into our camp, you will feel a difference in the energy from where you're coming from. You understand that, yes, truly, right here, we are really well motivated to win the AFCON.
So you're saying, Mr. Raji, there is no excuse for the Super Eagles to not bring home the AFCON Cup?
Well, definitely that's our target. We are not under pressure by anyone, but that is our target. You know, when you know you have what it takes. If you check out our squad, we have an AFCON winning squad, and we are a big nation. We are not here to play. In any AFCON tournament Nigeria goes to, we are favorites to win the tournament. It's just that way. That's because of the talents we have. I keep saying this. Aside crude oil, football is the next thing Nigeria exports. And the big brand, the big blend of football is the Super Eagles. So we understand it's a premium brand. So we understand this, and we expect everyone to keep high expectations. That's why you always feel somehow when we want to play, because it's a premium brand. You're always like, please don't disappoint. But we keep doing our best not to disappoint. We keep firming up things. The NFF is doing everything to firm up things to ensure that we never disappoint.
Mr. Raji, as you were talking, I was just sighing and sighing because, I mean, a lot of Nigerians are watching you right now, and they're hanging on every word that you say. Just bear that in mind. So you have said that we're not there to play, in quotes, as in, we didn't go there to shere, we went there to babble. Abi?
We came here to ball.
We came there to ball. Okay, we went there to ball. And even though the cup is still 6 matches away, you are telling us that we are there to win the cup.
We're in it to win it.
We are in it to win it. Every Nigerian is going to hang on your word. So this evening, people like my co-anchor here, who don't have the heart to watch live matches when Nigeria is playing.
I don't want to visit the cardiologist when the match is over.
Which I don't either. I only watch after I've heard the result. So what you're saying is that we should feel confident enough to sit in front of the television this evening and watch.
Yes.
Right?
And that's true supportership. That energy while you're watching also has a way of, it tells on what happens on the field of play. Imagine supporters that were to be at the stadium, spectators say, okay, we are scared. They don't come to the stands to support the team. So it means your presence there, even if it's not physical, also helps. It resonates. If we combine the energies of everyone, we'll get the result.
Mr. Raji, I'm sure you have heard of people who have died watching Nigeria play before. I'm sure you have.
And the same with clubs. It happens in clubs. But here, club football. But here, it's the national team. We understand this, but be rest assured that we're doing everything possible.
Okay.
The players are assured that they will fight for every ball
Okay.
to make sure the thing
Well, I'm happy that you're saying this and everyone is listening. I can also say that not everyone has the kind of tender heart I have or that Alero has. So some people who have the heart can throw it into the ring and watch that match. But talk to us about, is there anything you can say to us about the tactics for tonight? Or that the approach tonight? The coach has said, Mr. Austin Eguavon has said, as far as he's concerned, every match is a final and is going to be approached as such. Is there any changes being made to the squad or to the approach tonight?
Well, every game has got its own peculiarities. I remember during the official pre-match conference yesterday, the coach talked about adapting strategy and tactics to the team they will play. We also carried out opposition scouting, so it means they understand how the opponents will play and they adapt or adjust the strategies to suit that to get desired results. So definitely, whatever tactics, we want to win today. So whatever tactics that will get us that victory is what Coach Augustin Eguavon and the rest of the coaching crew will deploy. And trust me, he has been able to, in a very short time, infuse his football philosophy in the players. He may tweak tactics in between games, but his philosophy is basic. Even with the backroom staff, we know his philosophy. He tried to explain it. Number one, compact football, robust wing play, numbers up front and when defending. It sounds simple, but in execution, it takes a lot of tactical work to do that. And we have top-notch, highly tactical professional players in camp here who already understand these basic things. And it's been working for them. And we just pray this keeps working game after game after game till the final.
I hope we don't have any issues that will agitate the minds of the players, and you know what I'm referring to.
Well, we have a team psychologist, Dr. Emmanuel Fenner, team psychologist, has been working a lot on not just the players, even backroom staff, even the coaches. It's not just the players. Even, if the coach is not, it's not all right psychologically, how will he be able to deploy the right tactics? So he works on even the doctors and every other person. So it's a team that has several units, and each unit knows the duties that you do perform to get the team in the right frame. We have a nutritionist, we have everything. We have a PCO who also does make sure everything is fine. So it's a compact unit the NFL assembled to ensure we deliver the sport at Untitled for Nigeria.
And I also hope that sometime in the past we've also had issues with discipline. Hope there's no such issue this time.
Well, maybe you would say in recent past, no. Maybe that's on past. But when you talk about discipline, I keep saying it, we have a group of top-notch, highly disciplined players. And I'm not saying this because I'm the image maker of the team. I'm saying this because I've experienced it. I'm experiencing it. Yes, that's the fact.
Okay, we hear you.
Yeah,
okay.
So,
well, what do we know? I wonder, Mr. Raji, what might be the peculiarity for the Super Eagles in this match against Sudan that we're playing? Because, Nigeria won its match against Egypt. Sudan, which we're meeting tonight, had a goalless with Guinea-Bissau in their match on Tuesday. And, well, some would say a far less fancied team, far less accomplished team, the Sudan. But Coach Oguavon has said there is no such team as an underdog in AFCON. Is that the approach?
Yes, definitely. We respect every opponent. The same way we respected Egypt, we will respect Sudan, we will respect Guinea-Bissau, we will respect Algeria, respect any team we meet at all. We respect all teams.
So you mean we're going to go out against, don't forget, I mean, we all know Sudan isn't, they have drawn 6 games and lost 7 in their last 14 appearances, in the Africa Cup of Nations. No. So, I mean, should we go out all guns blazing against Sudan?
Well, definitely, we will. The same way we went all out for Egypt, we'll go all out for Sudan or any other team. See, in football, the word upset exists. And we don't want to give room for the word upset to be used when reporting this game. So it means we will kill a fly with a sledgehammer if need be, because every game is important to us. We want to score goals, want to improve game after game. So if we take on Sudan this way and we apply the same intensity and pressure and we win heavily, then all good. The same way Guinea-Bissau comes, intensity, pressure, all good. We don't want to get our foot off the gas pedal. We want to keep accelerating till we get to the final.
Okay, so now, in terms of upsets or any, because when we prepare for the best, we prepare for the best, we expect the worst. I don't know whether that's the reverse. Is there any match that we're looking forward to in this tournament, especially in this first round, that we're saying, not very sure how this is going to go?
All games come with that kind of However, you know that with every you prepare ahead. So that's why the coaching crew, they are here to ensure they prepare ahead. You know there could be potholes or the like you said. So to avoid those you must have seen the potholes ahead, and either you like you're driving on a typical Nigerian road, either you go put the pothole in the middle and you go over the pothole, or you apply your brakes a little bit, go into it gently, and then keep moving. The key thing is want to keep moving. Want to keep moving till we get to our destination, which is the trophy.
Okay, so what's your appeal to Nigerians tonight as we approach this? You've spoken about it a little earlier, but speak to us directly now. And what's the appeal of the entire crew to Nigerians for tonight's match?
Yeah, we want you all, Nigerians, in your millions, support the team, the Super Eagles. We are here to win the Africa Cup of Nations. We know what football does to our dear country. Football makes us happy. Crime reduces whenever the Nigerian national team plays. You find out there's a way to check it. Crime reduces, less fights, no violence. So please, Nigerians, support our team, the Super Eagles. Keep supporting the team and pray for us. And we will do the needful. The needful is to get the result on the field of play, because on our part, we have tried. We have trained hard, we have prepared hard. The Nigeria Football Federation has pumped in a lot of resources to ensure we do this right. And of course, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, has also done everything, sending presidential delegation to make sure the team is very much all right. Everything has been put in place to make us win this happen. And we want to do this happen.
We're going to have to
support us.
We are ready.
Yeah, but we're going to have to interrogate that fact you gave us now, that crime reduces when Super Eagles wins. Not tonight. Not right now, but we're going to thank you very much, Babafemi Raji, Super Eagles Media Officer. Thanks for your time today, and all the best tonight. We're waiting, and as Alera has told you, we are holding on to every word that you have spoken this morning.
We can't wait. We can't wait.
Our fingers are all crossed.
Thank you so
and
much,
Mr. Raji. Too. Yes, no fingers crossed.
We will win.
We will win. So 5 o'clock, we're all there supporting. Thank you very much. And it's a wrap for today. Thank you very much for being with us this day. I'm Alero Edu, wishing you all the best through this week and the following week. We shall be here with a fresh edition next week.
Amaya Makinde, have a wonderful day.